Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this this afternoon's webinar on making technology work to increase your productivity in the workplace. We have a special guest with us today. We have Charles Levasseur from the Neil Squire Assistive Technologies that will be presenting with us this afternoon. Just a short few details before we start. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to use the chat on your bottom right corner of your screen. We will be answering any questions that you guys send out through the presentation in the chat, so feel free to answer, to ask any questions. The webinar will be recorded, and we will be putting the recording on our website, and it will be available on our YouTube channel as well. If you have any technical difficulties throughout the webinar, don't hesitate to send me a message. You have my coordinates through the email that was previously sent. Don't hesitate just to ask any questions you have regarding technical issues as well. I will be asking you to mute your microphones, sorry, and shut off your cameras during the presentation, as it can interfere with the presentation a little bit. So without further ado, I will pass the microphone to Christin and Charles, and they will present this afternoon's webinar.
Merci, Melody. Thank you, Melody. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this today's webinar on making technology work to increase productivity in the workplace. Before I introduce our guest speaker, just a few words about the Nouveau-Brunswick Employer Support Services. We are a program being financed by the province of New Brunswick, and our mandate is to promote the hiring of persons with disability throughout the province of New Brunswick. How we do that? Basically, we present information to employers about the business case. We're trying to bring down the barriers, and we work in collaboration with agencies throughout the province that do the magic, specific magic in working with a person with a disability, because we're not client-based. We only work and deal with employers. Having said that, our services is free of charge, bilingual, of course, throughout the province of New Brunswick. And as I said, our job is to change the employee's mindset about the whole concept of hiring a person with disability, so that they can take advantage of this often untapped talent pool, which represents over close to 70,000 people working age population in New Brunswick. Person with disability, that's what they represent in New Brunswick. Up to 70,000 people, either unemployed or underemployed. So when we talk about an untapped talent pool, this is quite impressive and quite representative. Having said that, once again, thank you for participating in the webinar this afternoon. We have today the honor and the privilege of having Mr. Charles Levasseur with us today, who is the Executive Director of the Assistive Technology branch with the Neil Squire Society. Charles, welcome.
Thank you.
And so before we start talking about the actual topics that we want to share with everybody this afternoon, talk to us a little bit about yourself, but most importantly about your organization, please, if you may.
All right, so Neil Squire started with the creation of technology for someone who I recently had a car accident, actually. So we created some very efficient assistive technology back then. Because Neil himself, and I got a picture of him that I'll bring up in a few minutes, but Neil was not able to move, and worse, was not able to communicate. So he could not use his voice, he could not use his hands, could not use a keyboard, mouse. Of course, that was the early 80s back then, right? Computers were just starting, but we were able to create some kind of device using the sip and puff technology. So Neil can actually learn how to use Morse code and then type on the screen using Morse code. So, you know, it's just basic switch concept, very basic technology back then, but it worked so good that Neil was able to write letters to the people in the hospital beside him. Wow. and give them hope, and eventually decided to go back to school. Unfortunately, he passed away before his dream was realized, but that's when the Neil Squire Foundation back then was created.
So right now, and the Neil Squire here in New Brunswick, especially the Assistive Technology branch, the one that you're in charge of, What do you do, and basically, what is your target audience with the Assistive Technology help desk?
So our role is to help, like the mandate is to help people with assistive technology. So all I'm focusing on is to be able to find some technology that can be useful in the workplace and in the work of study, of course, and even at home. And that technology is sometimes could be complex, you know, like a bit like what Neil was using back then, but it doesn't have to be. Like it could be, like today's conversation that we're going to be talking about is going to be about Microsoft Office product. So it could be whatever the features of Microsoft Office can be used to leverage or increase performance for somebody with a disability, but also for everybody. So it's not just about the disability. Anybody can use that and benefit from it.
That's music to my ears, Charles, and thank you very much for bringing that up, because that's exactly where I wanted to go. And I want to really go straight to the subject matter we wanted to talk this afternoon. Let's talk about productivity into the workplace and how we can use technology to increase productivity. So having said that, in a conversation we had prior to being on air on this webinar, we talk about, you know, that a lot of times there's a lot of technology out there that were designed originally for a person with disability, but more and more we see, you know, like those type of technology being used for everybody within the workplace that can increase their productivity. But most of the time, a lot of people are not aware of that technology. That's
right. And I mean, it's the same concept of what we call universal design. Like, you know, like the people that created ramps, you know, they created ramps that obviously people in wheelchair can use. But anybody can go up that ramp, you know, like it doesn't mean you have to have a wheelchair, like, you know, you don't need the stairs if you got the ramp, really. So it benefits everybody. The automatic door openers, you know, you have people that on a wheelchair can click it, sure, it'll open the door. But if you go into your building, your hands are full, and I use mine all the time, then I'm using that feature. So it's a beneficial feature, and that's basically the concept today is the software vendors are listening to that universal design concept, and they're building software that everybody can use.
Well, let's go straight to the subject then, because, you know, this is exactly, and we have a lot to cover as well, though, because, you know, we did the French webinar this morning and we realized there was a lot of stuff. So having said that, talk to me a little bit about, you know, what your presentation this afternoon, how are we going to handle this, and what are you going to cover and touch and share with the audience this afternoon?
All right, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to bring up the information that I'm going to show in a second here. The first thing I want to mention is today's presentation obviously is a very high level, you know, give some topics and not go too much in detail on exactly how to do it because we just don't have the time. We've got 45 minutes. But the number you see on the screen right now, it's a great place to go to if you have any more further questions. Maybe we could send you a link to not promotional, but a video on how to use a specific feature maybe that I'm going to be talking about today. So that's the information. I'll bring it back at the end of the show here. But, you know, try to remember that and take a picture of the screen if you can. That'd be great. And then you'll always have it. Let me bring out my agenda for today because I think that's basically where we want to go. Oh, by the way, while we're at it, this is a picture of Neil, by the way, just to show you the technology of back then. If you look on the left, that's Neil before the accident, early 1980, and on the right, that's Neil after the accident. And look at the straw that he has in his mouth. That's basically what we call a sip and puff, and it's connected to an old computer, an old Commodore computer at that point. So if you could look at that, that's basically a method for Neil. That's a method he was using to communicate with doctors, nurses, parents, and even people in the hospital beside him. Amazing. So that concept is what the organization was based on, which is the creation of the technology.
Amazing.
All right, this is what I want to cover today. So I want to introduce this slide, and then we'll go into details on the actual topic. First of all, I'm going to base everything on Office 365 or Office 2016. Basically, Office 365 and Office. Oh, Jeff, you asked some question. Looking forward to presentation. We'll be able to get a copy. Yes, for sure. You can definitely get a copy. We'll take care of that, emailing you.
Yeah.
Melody will do that. So anyway, those concepts that I'm going to be talking about today will apply to Microsoft Office 365 in 2016, but I don't want to just to forget about all these other applications. Like there's great applications that are being created besides what Microsoft is putting on the market. Google Drive has some good features. There's some new ones that are less popular, like Zoho, LibreOffice. Some are free, right? OpenOffice, think free. Now, not all the software will have all the features I'm talking about today, but they might have a similar feature, right? Or it's the way of working that I want to emphasize. And sometimes you could apply that new mentality with these software as well.
Okay.
So we're going to focus on OneNote. We're going to focus on Word. Why, when we use OneNote, when do we use Word? I'll explain the difference on that today. But my hope today is really to change people's mind in the way we're working. So I'm going to call this, there's change in the air, it's coming, the wind is changing direction. And I'm going to put 3 points to make you guys think. First of all, file servers, USB stick or drives, well, those are in the endangered list. You know, they'll disappear eventually, just like the floppy did back then, right? We don't use floppies anymore. Well, those are the next one to go. I used to say USB stick only, but I'm adding file servers to this because the concept of file servers is great. You know, we're still going to use that in the new way of working, but it's going to be done in the cloud way as opposed to be done on, like, for example, on the J drive or P drive or S drive, whatever drive letter you guys use in the workplace. You know, that's going to be replaced by the cloud. And it's probably going to be replaced by a project or a program, right? So it's not going to be associated with a letter, which is a bit cryptic, really, if you think about it, right? Like the C drive, the J drive, that's kind of cryptic.
But I'm just getting used to that. You know, and it's going to be on an endangered list. It scares me.
It's technology, and there's probably a better word to describe the endangered list in terms of technology. But I like the word because it reminds us that, okay, listen, you know, things change, right?
Right.
And whatever exists today may not exist tomorrow, right?
True.
So. Saving documents also. I mean, you know, we don't save as much as with the new technologies we used to with the old technology. I mean, how many times you write a Word document, something happens and you lose it, right? You forgot to save it or you lost power. Well, you know, there came up some features over the years like automatic backup. I'm not sure if you remember with Word. Then you start Word and they give you a list of documents that potentially you could recover. You know, that worked and that didn't work. It was, to me, again, a bit cryptic. You know, which one do I save now? Now it's automatic save, really. Like as soon as you put a letter, that letter is saved. You know, it's really interesting the way it works. It's because of the cloud, right?
I'm looking forward for this part because I just lost the document again last week.
There you go.
Okay.
And using mouse. I mean, mouse, we all know from a disability point of view, mouse is just not a solution, right? Mouse is great. You know, it allows you to touch the screen and so on and so on. But there's different ways to do that. Okay, if you could move the mouse with a different part of the body, great. But mouse is not always the most effective way to use a computer. Okay, the keyboard is another way to use a computer, which is just as effective. I'm going to try to use my keyboard at 90% of the time for this presentation today. I'm going to use the mouse once in a while, but traditionally I'm going to try to use my keyboard shortcut, which I'm going to introduce to you today in some of the features. So using a keyboard, for example, is more, you know, it's faster than using a mouse, you know, because if I want to click save, for example, I have to click file and then save, right? If I want to use a keyboard, I have to press Control S. So yeah, it's two keys, but you do them at the same time. So it's one command, right? Printing, file, print, you know, then press OK, 3 clicks, Control P. Press enter, right? So there's ways to do that, and it works really good. Using your voice, that's another way. Using a voice is even more effective in some environment, not in all environments. Thinking of call center, sometimes it's a bit difficult, but in a lot of environment, yeah, but using the voice is a great feature. So anyway, changes in the air where I'm using a touchscreen. You know, I'm using a stylus. You know, I'm using all kinds of stuff that we never used in an office environment, you know, before. So wow. Okay, so important concept, website. Now, website is just a place to store documents. I guess what I want to emphasize here is the document is the important part, not the website, right? So
the content.
The content, right? So the website itself is just a repository, right? So So I want you guys to think as a website as a place to put content. Really, that's a big focus, change in focus. The notebooks that we're going to be talking about today can do the same thing. Right, so a notebook is kind of like a website, really, if you think about it. Right, so it's a place to store content. Okay.
Yeah.
Now in the notebooks, we'll put all kinds of stuff. We'll talk sections today. We'll talk page, text, file, image, audio, video, links. Right, those are elements of the notebook. Okay, so again, those are what forms the content. Right. We can also do annotation. See, annotation is what we always done. So that's old. We've been taking a piece of paper and a pen, printing something and drawing on it.
Exactly.
That's annotation. Now we'll do it on the computer. Right? You highlight, you circle, you draw. You actually can do even more than that because using the computer, then you can insert audio. Right? So you're inserting audio notes, right? You're adding bullets, you're numbering, you're formatting. You're putting tags. Tags is an important one. Pay attention to that one. I think it's a great feature.
Interesting.
And then, of course, the sharing, the concept here, sharing and synchronization, that's another big concept that I want you guys to focus on today because, you could share that information so much easier than you can with a file folder system.
Probably as well, though, Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, in more cost-effective way as well. Though.
Yeah.
Like you eliminate, with the way you explained this morning, the sharing aspect is you kind of eliminate the possibility of errors, like
right.
Like not finding the proper document or whatsoever. Right?
That's right. It's a lot easier to search for information.
Okay.
And I'll show the difference, like using OneNote as a way to find information versus using the Windows Explorer.
Okay.
Right? Because that's the concept, right?
All right.
And then there's a whole bunch of important features I'm going to bring up that will go on as we go.
So the floor is all yours, and you got us excited. So please give us more information now.
All right, so here's a picture that I like to use when I try to explain what I'm doing with OneNote there. So basically, that's not me, but it's kind of like me, I guess, if you look at it. And it's kind of like a lot of people I work with. It's an organized mess, right? It's a bunch of papers put into a binder. And you probably have them in the wrong order. You can't find anything in there.
It's in there, but where? Yeah, that's a different story. Yeah. But it's in there.
It's in there, and there's probably a few more of those binders on the desk too that we don't see in the back here.
Probably.
Right. So I mean that's the whole concept, right? So how do we go from there to something like this? Well, for me, it's never going to happen manually. I'm never going to do that on paper. Okay, even just buying those things at Staples, organizing that, printing a table of content, making sure, like creating binders, like for me, it's just not a natural thing to do, right? So I can never get to that if I would not have technology.
But you can recreate that, but not in that format.
I can recreate it, and I'll do it right now just by going to my OneNote, and I just minimize the page, and you can see that I am in OneNote right now. It kind of looked like PowerPoint, I guess, if you look at the previous slide, but it was a OneNote page. And basically, you could see on the left, I got all kinds of binders, right? My notebook, which is the proper word.
It's your filing system.
That's right, it's a filing system. On top, I have all my sections, and they're divided into whatever. Like I'm in the demo notebook right now with the demo tab. But I could go to the math tab, I could go to the English tab, I could go to the welding tab, and so on. Go back to demo, right? So it's very easy to navigate, and I can actually search too if I wanted to.
Wow.
And then within my section, then I got all these pages, right? So here's a picture of Neil, right? That was here. Here's the AT help desk numbers, and basically my reality. Or the nice one, and so on, right? So I can get there. So, OneNote is part of Microsoft Office. So if I go back here, these are the software that are part of Microsoft Office.
And by the way, for everybody's benefit, Charles is not getting any kickback from Microsoft Office, as mentioned early on.
Yeah.
He's just, sharing, like some of the features that we can find through Microsoft Office Suite. But other software as well have all kind of other applications whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope it's true, though. You're not getting any.
It is true, and unfortunately, I've been teaching Microsoft product for a long time. I'd be rich by now, right?
Okay.
No, it's not going to happen. So yeah, Office Suite itself, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, Publisher, Skype for Business, Access. That's the main core of Microsoft Office. So really, that's where most people will play in, right?
Okay.
Then there's the Exchange. Exchange is the server side for the email. Outlook would be your client. So we're not going to talk about that at all. But SharePoint's interesting because SharePoint will create a portal, a web portal, so you could collaborate with your team, right? Or the people you're working with. And team being it could be a company here, like it could be a group of people in one company, it could be the entire company, it could be a consortium of companies. So even there's no limits depending on how you implement it.
And it could be somebody who's like from coast to coast to coast,
right? Exactly.
Or okay,
yeah. So SharePoint is great for that. We're not going to talk about SharePoint today, but I want you guys to pay attention to that because this extends what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. So I don't have the SharePoint right now. Yammer is another good one. Yammer is an enterprise for social networking, right? So it's a social networking platform that is enterprise based. So you can actually use that internally.
It is the actual concept of Facebook when it started.
It is. It allows you to connect to all these social things,
okay,
right? So that to be able to connect what you need to connect on the outside and control it.
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of a nice concept, right? OneDrive. OneDrive obviously is your storage. That's what's going to be replacing the actual file server. A lot of benefit to that. Like when you have a file server, then you need to make sure your drives don't fail. You need to upgrade your server from time to time. You need to have the server license. You need to have somebody that knows how to run that server and program it and do whatever he needs to do.
Exactly.
With OneDrive, and you need to back it up, right? OneDrive, they take care of that for you. So for a small enterprise, it makes total sense. Okay, maybe I could say a larger company wants more control on that, fine. But for a smaller organization, especially with the size that me and you work in anyway, that makes total sense.
Really?
So yeah, it creates a lot of opportunities for smaller companies to be able to do the same thing as a larger company do.
Wow.
Right? So yeah, so technology is great. Planner and Team, my favorite two software lately. Team is a great software when you're working in projects and you want to actually, you want to create a list of things that you have to do, like a work-based structure of work that and then you assign those tasks to somebody in the team, right? Well, that's great because then you could manage that. It's project management, basically, is what it is.
Okay.
At the easy to understand level, and you can actually connect all communications, whether you do them by Outlook, or even Yammer or whatever. All these communications can then be connected to the team and to the project.
And it's all integrated as well.
It's all integrated, and that's the beauty here. And the whole point behind this is that, like how many of you, take your email, your inbox, and even your sent item, and then you sort them, right? You take your inbox message, you put them in a folder that you created,
yep.
And then your IT guy says your email is too full, got to delete some, archive some.
Yep.
That's the whole concept, right? Well, with Planner and Team, you don't worry about that. Basically, the team software itself, the environment will control, like if you send an email about a project and you do it through the planner of the team, it's actually automatically going to associate all these communications with that team or project, right? And I say project or team because there's a couple of ways of using it,
Okay.
I mean, some people don't necessarily manage project, but they have events, right, that they're working on. I wouldn't really call it a project. An event is a project. It's just a smaller project. But, I mean, it's more team focused, You do this, I do that, and so on.
Okay.
Right?
Quite interesting.
And Sway is a new way of working for creating reports, presentations. You can actually use it instead of PowerPoint, but differently than PowerPoint too, which is kind of interesting. And you could use it for creating newsletters and other types of formats like that. So that's where we're coming from in terms of application. Okay. But let's go more detail into OneNote because all this will connect to these other ones. But I want to focus today. and I'll come back to this slide in a second, on some of these features that I thought was kind of nice here. I picked those ones specifically for this webinar, but basically there's a lot of features that we can focus on. So let's start with the keyboard shortcut. Keyboard shortcut, here's a list. Those are the ones that I use the most. There's more. I'll bring you to a website in a second and I'll show you more. But basically the Control A, select all. So if I just go Control A, I just selected all. Right, so instead of using my mouse to drag,
and
right?
drag and everything and so on, and then you miss one, and then the first one, and then you have to go back and redo it again.
That's right. Now look at this one here. So this one here is all the shift arrow, right? So I press the shift key and I press the right arrow. Notice I'm selecting to the right or down arrow. So I'm going to select the row, left arrow will go back. So I can actually select, you know, using the shift and the arrows on my keyboard. So I don't need a mouse. Again, so reducing the reach for the mouse here. So is that productivity? It is, especially if you know the commands. For example, if I want to select that line, I actually all need to do is shift N, and you don't have to go use the arrow at that point either. So there's tricks, you know, there's efficiencies you could get by knowing these keyboard shortcuts. Now, I don't want to create, I don't want you guys to worry about you have to learn my list, because that's my list. You have to learn the keyboard shortcut that you need, and I don't know what that is, because everybody uses different software, everybody works differently. So, I mean, I have about 30 keyboard shortcuts that I learned over the years, and they're not new. They've been around for a long time, and they're going to be around for another long time. So basically, you need to figure out what keyboard shortcut you will work best for you. And I can give you a list. If you send me an email, I give you a list of all the keyboard shortcuts for Microsoft products. They're easy to find. You Google them actually, and you'll get them. You could get them from Apple too. You could get them from Linux. There's all kinds of keyboard.
And basically, Charles, you know, correct me. You know, like I'm trying to figure out, as I said, if you want to highlight a few lines or a few words, if you use your mouse and you have any problem with dexterity and so on, I guess, you know, it could be more really complicated. But if you know exactly how to use the control or your keyboard or whatsoever, the accessibility and in terms of efficiency as well, you know, like it goes a lot more faster.
That's right. It's much faster to be able to use a keyboard than trying to drag with a mouse for a lot of reasons. I mean, the mouse is great, like I said, but it creates repetition issues, you know, like workplace injuries. I mean, you're doing the same thing too much. Right. Where when you're using the keyboard, you tend to do different things. So it's kind of, you know, the concept of using mouse and keyboard is better than using mouse alone or keyboard alone. So you need to combine, right? You cannot do the same thing over and over. Now, in terms of disability, yeah, you could combine these keyboard shortcut with the sticky keys, which we haven't talked about today, but sticky keys are an actual feature part of Windows where it will, like if I have to press shift arrow, you have to press the shift key and it will stick it, it will keep it down, and you can release it and then use the arrow, right? And or whatever other command after. Like for example, if I go Control B will bold, right? So I press Control, let it go, press B, as long as your sticky keys are on, it'll do it, right? So there's ways to do that. One that I want to pay attention to is the function keys too. So it's not always the control keys, but there's the F11 key. The F11 key is the full screen. Notice I press F11, I see my OneNote. I press F11, I see my full screen. Because I don't need to see my OneNote all the time, or my whatever the software is, right? I need to see my page more.
Your information.
Right, that's what I'm working on right now. So I can minimize the, and I'm not talking minimize because minimize is created with Windows. I'm talking about, you know, hiding the toolbars and all these tabs that you don't need at that time by using the F11 key, right? Wow. So F7, spelling. So if you want to start your spell check, you click F7 instead of going click on review, click on spelling.
Really?
Yeah, so F7 will do that. And if I want the thesaurus, right here.
Where were you last week when I was doing a document?
There you go. And then you go Shift F7 to see thesaurus, right?
Wow.
So Shift F10, that's a nice one. Shift F10. If I go here and I press Shift F10, you know, that's basically my right mouse button, right? So, you know, you press the right mouse button, well, that's Shift F10. You know, so depending on where this one relies on the mouse cursor, obviously, right? Because it's a mouse command. but it's done with a keyboard. Right? So
Amazing.
So again, you know, you combine that however you want, but there's ways to do that. And some keyboards, like, you know, there's an actual, you know, context menu key on the keyboard. So in mine, it's beside the control key. I have to press the function key.
Okay.
But if you have an extended keyboard, you may have it directly there by the space bar.
Okay.
Somewhere on that side.
Okay, I hear you.
And there's like a Windows key too, which combines with all kinds of keyboard shortcuts.
And that technology, as you said, though, those features are usually available as well on other than just OneNote, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
These are the ones that I'm showing today are Windows based. They're Microsoft created probably, but they work in a lot of the Microsoft software, but also the software that works on Windows, right? So sometimes they will share because they basically when you program a software, you borrow from other programmers if you can. And in this case, those are things that people can borrow from.
Okay.
So they don't have to create
Amazing.
codes. Some software, I work with a lot of people that work in companies, call centers, no matter what, they use hotkeys. So those hotkeys usually, as opposed to keyboard shortcut, are programmed within the software, and they're strictly for that software.
Okay.
Right. So you may have to learn some of those too, depending on where you work. Right. So
basically, the keyboard shortcuts can increase productivity in the sense that, you know, it's a way that is more accurate, lots more user friendly, and it's a lot more expedited. I don't know if
well, especially if you're working on a laptop, then you don't need to have that extra mouse, you know, so you don't reach that other mouse. So yeah, you could actually just go and focus on the keyboard and switch software by pressing Alt-Tab, which is not even on that list. You know, like again, you could easily switch software faster. You can actually combine that with some assistive technology software, like if you're using software for the blind, which is very productive software, by the way. If you just listen to your computer instead of looking at it, you can go fast as long as you get used to doing it that way, right? And what you do usually with JAWS, you're going to be using the keyboard a lot, right? Because you know where the keys are, but it's pretty hard to see where that mouse cursor is. Right, so you know that makes sense, right? So
yeah, it makes sense. Although, you know, I have to say that at my age, when you say you have to listen to your computer, for me, it should have been the other way around. Your computer listening to you, but this is where technology is right now. It's like there's all kind of stuff built in that we can use to increase productivity all over the place.
That's right. I saw a guy presenting one time, and he was reading Braille. Actually, he was presenting at a conference, and he had a Braille reader on his knee here, and he was talking, but while he was talking, he was reading his Braille, so nobody noticed it. But what he was doing is following the script, right? So, you know, he looked like he knew the presentation by heart, but he didn't. He might have, but he was following the script. Wow. And he admitted to that during the presentation. I'm not sure if you guys see that, but it's basically what he said, and that makes so much sense to me, is that, you know, sometimes the assistive technology is actually more efficient than the other way, because you could do more multitasking, you know. Yeah, it takes some getting used to, I admit, you know, like no doubt. But, you know, I mean, the whole concept, you know, at least what I'm showing today is not that complicated to learn, right? The keyboard shortcut is, like I said, 20.
Quite interesting.
Well, let's move on to the next one, the OneNote, using OneNote instead of file folders. Okay, so file folders. I'm going to stop the sharing, and I'm going to bring up my file folder here. I'm going to share my desktop, actually. Okay, so let me bring up a file folder. Here's a file folder right here. I'm just going to go to my, see, I got some of those share file that are, I'm not connected to my network right now, but if I would, I could go to my data, which happens to be my J drive and so on. Okay. I have my Dropbox, I got my OneDrive, I got my network, I got my C drive. You know, to me, I know I've been working computers a long time, so I'm used to that, but it's still cryptic. You know, where do I find these documents? Where are they? You know, like users, you know, I mean, there's other ways, obviously, to go. There's a user called Lobster.
I like it.
I don't have permission to see it. Okay, fine.
Geez.
So the whole concept here is that it's still cryptic. You know, call it whatever you want. We get used to it, yes, sure. But if I have to tell a coworker, oh yeah, go to C drive, this folder, and you know, you're not going to remember that.
Oof.
Right? So it's a pad, right? Usually it's a long pad. So what we try to do here in my concept, and I think it's prediction, I'm going to be using OneNote instead of file folder for a lot of the stuff we put on the file folder. Not everything, you know, because there's still a need for file folders,
Okay.
but I'm going to use OneNote for a lot of it. And again, going back to OneNote, look at these documents here. I got an ECD document. I got an ADHD document. What you don't see right now, if I go into the ADHD one, for example, and I go procedures or whatever, e-bulletins, you know, those are tabs that we created specifically for that group, that notebook.
Okay.
But that notebook is actually shared, right? So if I go and share this notebook, you could see that it's shared with a few people. Those are Neil Squire people, obviously, right? And you can decide what they can do, like Kayla can edit, Seaver can edit, and so on and so on, right?
Wow.
So I'm going to go back here, but the whole concept is that basically the whole OneNote environment becomes a place where you can store information that traditionally will be on the file server and make it easier to access because you're putting it in the format of binders. Now, you know, to me, it just makes more sense. I'd rather go and find information in here than into a cryptic directory. And if you're old enough, and you may understand this, old enough for using the internet when it first came out, it's like the concept of using the Gophers versus the World Wide Web. When Netscape came out, it was a browser. Before browsers, we used to have Gophers. Gophers were structured based on the old file system. You would follow directories, right? And if you're even older than that, we used to have BBS, which is even worse because then it wasn't DOS. You had to type everything back then.
Oof, okay.
But that, you know, we're getting back to the dark days. But, you know, basically, Windows Explorer is just a visual representation of the dark days. OneNote is a visual representation of where we're going. It's more like a website, if you agree.
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's where we're going. That's the future.
Wow.
Okay? So yeah, can you put everything in OneNote? Technically, yes, but it would probably make sense to put everything in OneNote. You know, like there's still need for file folders. Like for people working with clients, then you probably have client files that you want to keep, resumes, whatever it is that you do for a living. If you're working as an engineer, then you probably have, I don't know, blueprints that you're keeping somewhere, you know, whatever.
But
there's still a need.
The way I look at it, though, is like having your filing cabinets with you all the time.
Right.
You know, like it's filing cabinets and your files all the time,
That's right.
sorted properly and so on. And then you're meeting with someone, you can extract technically one specific file and share it with somebody on the spot.
That's right. And it takes some getting used to. That's why I said there's change in the air. You know, when I first introduced this to my team, everybody looked at me like I had 3 heads, and then probably some of them still do. But that, you know, like it's a new concept, and we adopted it, and it's starting to work. You know, at least provincially, and I think we're going to go there from a national point of view soon. So, you know, I think that people are actually listening, and yeah, it's just a matter of time. But the concept of synchronization, you mentioned that, like the sharing. You know, like it's shared with the right people, easier to share. I don't need to have an IT manager going and managing the sharing for me. I can do that on my own. It's synchronized. I could access things from my cell phone if they allow you, your tablet if they allow you, my desktop, my laptop, whichever.
Wow.
Right? So it makes it truly portable.
And the beauty is that, you know, like there's the everything is being synchronized, everything is being secure, and everything, you know, is always done in a way that would minimize the risk factor of losing a file, being misplaced or whatsoever. Even with the older system, you know, that you share early on. With this, though, everything is stored properly.
Right.
And it's so cost effective, let's put it this way.
Yeah. So look at this. I'm going to use the keyboard for next step, so I'm not going to use the mouse. So links. I want to create a link, actually. Right. Okay. So I highlighted the word link using my shift and control keys, shift and arrow keys, I should say. Then I want to go to insert, right? So what I'm going to do to bring up the insert key using my keyboard, not the mouse, is I'm going to press the Alt key on my keyboard, which is another keyboard shortcut. And Alt will show me what the letter is associated with the word insert. So the letter is N, all right? So I just have to press N now, and then I want to go create a link, which is letter H.
Geez.
Right? So I'm going H, again, all my big keyboard, and then I could navigate. I'll just go faster to finish it with the mouse because I think the point was made. I go to my demo at this point, and demo, and I'll just going to make a link to Neil Squire, right? Which is the picture of Neil. Okay, so now here I go. Just created a link just like that, right? It didn't take too long. It's easy to work with. So now I click on links. This will bring me to Neil.
Wow.
Right, so that's kind of website navigation there, right? So that's my whole concept with this, is that this OneNote truly becomes a binder that is cross-referenced. You could actually put a table of content at the beginning of each one of those binders and update them as needed, and basically have information that's always up to date, that's accurate, that's shareable, easily accessible. My clients in wheelchair benefit from it too, because I have students that are in wheelchair. They're going to post-secondary, and they got book bags in the back of their chair, and they can't reach the book bag, but they can if it's on the computer, because they can totally access their computer. So to me, again,
Wow.
it's a good technology for people with disability, but it can be used by everybody. This makes so much sense to use, and if everybody would be using it, then it would be even better.
I can see in a work setting environment, like when you have many employees, or regardless how many employees, I should say, like when storing and sharing information, cost effective, as opposed to printing down and sharing documents and sending an email saying, this is the attached. Please find attached the documents for the upcoming webinar on Charles, on you and I.
Exactly.
Right. So
yeah.
and where's you lose where's that email again?
Yeah.
As opposed to this, though, it's being shared directly.
Yeah. And with OneNote, what I would do if I receive an email inviting me to something in OneNote, in Outlook, I should say, I'm sorry, with Outlook, then I can actually send it to my calendar directly from my Outlook, right? And then you could actually send it to OneNote. And then you could start, like, for example, if you go to take meetings at a meeting, or you want to take your own notes at a meeting, right? And then you actually add the event in your calendar, because it went there from Outlook directly to your calendar. You're in your calendar now, you send it to OneNote, and then you take information and you link it back to that event. And then you want to go back and find those notes eventually. You look in your OneNote, you can't find it because you didn't organize yourself properly, but you go back in your calendar and you find it because it's linked. Right? So again,
wow.
It just makes sense, right?
Wow.
There's all kinds of ways to work with this. I got to move on because of time, but I'm going to show you two new features that I think, well, new, they're not that new, but so I'm going to be talking about tags. Okay, so tags. What are tags? Which I think is important for. I want to create a to-do list, right? So if I go back to my home page, you'll see the tags right there. They're right there. So there's a couple of them. There's an Outlook task. There's a Find tag. There's a To-Do tag. But there's a drop-down list where you could get all kinds of other ones.
Okay.
Right? So for example, if I want to create a to-do list, well, I'll use the first one, which you could use Control-1, by the way, as a keyboard shortcut.
Jeez.
Right? So, so I don't know, call Joanne. I got to call Joanne. All right. So I'll create another one. Notice it's like bullets, right? You'll create another one. So I'll call Pierre. Right? And so on. And, I don't purchase. That's it. Okay. And so on. So now these are actually to-do lists, right? So if I click on call Joanne, I click on that, check mark, right? So matter of fact, I use that with my phone. So I create my to-do list. If I go shopping or something, so I don't want to forget it, then I get to my cell phone and I go down the aisle and I press a check mark on my phone, which is automatically connected here, right? So again, it doesn't have to be shopping. It could be maybe you want to check up on something, and you create a checklist. You have to go in the shop and look, make sure that this is done, then you can actually do that. Right?
I can easily see my wife seeing some advantage when she sent me to do the grocery.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, technology, It depends how you use it. It depends who uses it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, there's more like, important information, Control-2. You get a star, right? So this is on the test. Right? blah, 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 whatever. Let's say you're a student, right?
Okay.
So the teacher, that's on the test. Well, you put a star and then you type your notes, okay? It could be like the question mark, you know? Like you're listening to somebody at the meeting. Okay, what does he mean no more USB stick, right? And a couple of typos, that's okay. For time, I'll just leave them because right. So the concept here is that those are tags, which means I can search for those tags now eventually.
But they are customizable.
Customizable,
well.
yeah.
I was gonna say.
You could create your own, basically.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. It is. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
And another feature which I like too, very similar to tags, it's a concept of templates. Again, templates been around forever, so it's nothing new there. But you know, if I use it this way, like page template, so I'm going to pick one that's already created,
Okay.
like a project to-do list. Okay, there's one that's already created. All right, I'll bring up another one. Prioritize to-do list, high priority, medium priority. Right, but there's more. Right, so I'm going to bring up a page template, and I don't know, like business. We'll see what they got under business. If I can click on it there. And it's hard to click on because I got the pictures on top of me. Like a statement. Let's say you want to do a statement. That one doesn't have anything here. Letter. Okay, some of them are blank, so they're not customized yet.
Okay.
Academic. Let's go to academic then. Okay, simple lecture note. Here we go. Right, so the title, right, so today's lesson is about technology, okay? Your homework, well, you filled that one at the end probably because you don't know what your homework will be. See, these are important fact covered today, right? And then you go down here and you take your notes, right? All right, so homework would be page 5, you know, blah, 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 okay? And then you could save that and automatically, it saves automatically because I just created that page. And that page, I just save it by giving it a name, really. You don't have to, but it's just going to give it a default name if you don't. All right, so I call it Tecknology. So Tecknology is on the bottom somewhere because that's where I put it. Okay, it just goes there automatically.
Wow.
All right, so then I can go and take that page and send it somewhere else. You know, you could actually move it. All right, so then you could categorize it in any one of those notebooks, email it, or whatever.
Or duplicate it as well. So, okay.
Yeah. Now the beauty here again is that you can customize those template as well, right? So you can actually create a page, save the current page as a template, create a new template, whatever. Okay. So if you have a template that your company use for meetings, for agenda, for reports, you know, you have to go do a weekly report on something, or, you know, then you create those ahead of time and you share that so people can all use the same form. And again, easier to share than creating a Word document that you have to put in the file folder where people have to go and find, right? So
we're talking about consistency, if I'm using the proper word, and at the same time.
That's right.
You know, like minimize the risk factor as well for discrepancies or whatsoever, because, you know, like you have an opportunity to have the same document for everybody.
That's right, exactly.
Jeez.
So that's the page template and so on. There's a draw feature, which I like too, because right now, and it's hard to see the table, but I'm using a touchscreen, and I'm just going to be writing using my stylus right now. Now, it's a touchscreen computer, which means I can actually go and, you know, put my screen down on the table and use it as a tablet, right? So I'm writing on the tablet right now, right? So I'm just going to write my name, right? So it's not a lot of writing, but notice on top there's a ink to text feature if I put the mouse on it. So by typing or writing something and you click on that, it's going to convert it to text. So if you prefer to use your pen to write, not a problem. You know, you just take a page in OneNote and you just go at the meeting and then you just you don't use your stylus. And then once you're done with the stylus, you just convert it to text. And then you could copy it and paste it and put in the report or minutes or whatever.
So that says it all about a few weeks ago. I was in a meeting and a friend of mine who was taking notes of the meeting. She was writing on her computer like you did. And at the end of the meeting, she just pushed something on the computer, and right away on my smartphone, I got the minutes of the meeting. So I thought she was really, really, really smart. But at the end of the day, though, she was just using technology to her advantage.
That's right. And then you could use its calculation too, right? So let's say you have an item that's $45 and the tax is 15, right? 15%. Okay. So what you could do is 45 times 15% equals not even enter, press the space after the equal, and you get your answer.
As opposed to, okay, use a smartphone or a calculator. It's like you add.
That's right.
Everything is incorporated.
That's right. And that's a basic equation, but you can actually do very complex equation with this too. So, I mean, this is, it's phenomenal. You can actually use it as you're thinking. It's a thinking tool for some people. When I create some kind of document, I usually do it in Outlook, in OneNote, I'm sorry, because it allows me to create a draft and then connect things together before I can actually go and pull that final document, which, by the way, brings me back to my initial comment at the beginning when I started. It's when do you use OneNote versus Word? Well, basically, to me, OneNote, first of all, is a binder. It's where I put all my information. It's where I know where to look for information when I need it. It's also a place where I do my draft work, right? Unless I'm, like sometime like this week, I was actually, and last week I was working on the diagram, and I use Visio, fine. Sometimes you have specialized software, but I can actually put the product here eventually from Visio directly to here. Sometimes I do a spreadsheet. Again, I probably would use Excel for the spreadsheet, not OneNote, but I can put it in OneNote once I'm done, either by a link or actually the picture of the spreadsheet itself. Right? So that's the whole concept of connecting between software is big. The Word itself, I would use Word for letters, documents, obviously, that you're going to be printing, or and so on. Because that's what Word does. It's a word processor. You could create books. You could create things that is usually designed for the print format, or even the electronic books format, because you can actually create PDF in Word and be the base of the online ebooks, right? So Word is the source for that. OneNote is more of a working tool. So it's my workbench, in other words, right?
But tell me something, Charles. You were talking about, this little pen. There's other means as well, though. Isn't there a voice thing that could be used to increase efficiencies and so on? Or am I going ahead though, and I'm in advance? I'm too way in advance.
Right. So instead of typing, you can actually use your dictation tool. I'm glad you brought it up because I almost forgot. So click on Learning Tools, and then you see where it says Dictate. And if I click on it right now, it's in French, I believe. I'm going to go with English. And my microphone's off, so it's not going to work. But if I click on Dictate, then whatever I say after that will go into the computer and be typed automatically. And it works really, really good. So it's efficient. You can dictate much faster than you can type.
So, well, that's the whole point. Talk about, increased productivity and efficiency as well, though. Usually a person, especially like me, that types with 2 fingers,
right?
Probably 20, 30 words a minute if I'm really, really fast. But the voice, though, the dictate, how fast does it go? How many words per minute usually?
Some article that I read says about 120. So you could actually go and type 120 words a minute if you know what you're going to say. Like people that are extrovert are probably better at 120 words a minute than people that are introvert, because they're thinking while they're talking, right? So yeah, definitely you could go quite fast.
Wow.
So in fact, lawyers are using voice recognition for their documents, right? Medical field is using it. It's basically being used by a lot of professionals. The concept is, right? Traditionally, they use Dragon. And Dragon's a great software, but Dragon gives you more than dictation. Like if you want just dictation, I would recommend that. A lot of people I work with, person with learning disability, that's all they need is dictation, and I go with that. But a lot of people I work with that have a mobility, then Dragon sometimes is better because they can actually control the computer with their voice. right? So that's an added feature to Dragon that, and Dragon is not the only choice for that, by the way, but it's one of the best one that I find. And yeah, it allows you to do that.
But the beauty is that, and the point I'm trying to make once again is that, technology that was originally designed for an individual person with disability, is like are now features that are part of a regular feature of those softwares,
That's
applications.
Right. Exactly.
And everybody can use it though and increase their efficiency.
It's universal design, basically. That's what it is.
It's
right?
amazing.
Yeah. So
and it's amazing.
Yeah. And there's changes of color. If you notice, my colors are darker than your typical. I did that by going File Options, and you'll see there that I use a dark gray as opposed to the colorful, which is the default, I believe. And the colorful, that's what that is. To me, it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work for me. So that's why I changed it. And I'm going to change it back. Because everybody's different, and you may, I don't know, maybe you suffer from headaches too. Maybe you had a car accident, a brain injury, you suffer from a stroke. Maybe, I don't know. The concept is maybe you're sensitive to a lot of light, and you can actually do that on the page too, not just on the what's the word I'm looking for, on the software itself. On the page, notice like there's page colors. I'll go with that color here. So that's kind of a
change the whole background.
Yeah, of the page, right? Exactly. So then it's even less bright, which is better. And I'll remove that, and I'll show you the next one. And I know we're going to be running out of time here, so I'm just going to go as fast as I can. You could do rulers. People like to work with rulers. People like to work, if you do math, especially, grid lines.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, that's quite wow.
Right? I mean, there's ways to customize that, and then you could insert all kinds of stuff which we haven't covered today. But you could insert spreadsheet, diagrams, screen clipping, like the video diagram that I was working on last week. I could put it right there. Online videos. I could record audio. Like all we've done really is the links and the template here, but there's all these other things you can insert, right? So.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that's basically, there's a lot of choice when it comes down to features that are flexible or accessible, I should say, but that are designed to increase productivity. And what I showed today using OneNote, a lot of it is available in Word, right? It's not, yeah, it's not just the OneNote concept. Obviously, the tabs are, the notebooks are, but OneNote is an integral part of Microsoft Office. It combines itself with Word quite a bit. There's lots of good videos that can show you how to do a better integration than I can today, because they'll be talking about specific features, where I'm talking about all kinds of features today there. But so anyway,
how about accessibility as well? Though at one point in time, you share with me that there are for accessibility there are check accessibility. And when we do a document, is there in a way, shape, or form that there are preset fonts and everything that will allow me to, can you elaborate? Where I'm going with that?
So that's the style. What you're referring to is the style. And for example, like I can format something in OneNote, but I'll do it in Word just to show you, because it's the same thing.
Okay.
Right? And just demonstrate how it's really well integrated. So I'm going to bring up my Word. And I'm going to be typing a document here. All right, so this is the first heading, right? Blah, blah, blah. That's all I have time to type. This is the second heading, blah, 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 right? So basically, I can take the first heading, format it using the style right here. Now, instead of being vertical, they're horizontal. Same concept, right?
Yeah, okay.
So I go here, and I got a typo here. It's okay, I'll fix it quickly. But then I could go and just click on that, and there we go. So those are formatted consistently. There's ways I can actually go into the style and change the format. And if I change the color blue to red, for example, then all my style in that document, doesn't matter if it's got 50 page, 100 page, 20 page, they're all going to change at the same time.
Really?
So it's a better way of working, because you're more efficient. but it's more consistency. You make less mistakes, and especially with consistency, right?
Saving time on editing and so on, and making sure that at the end of the day, though, your document is accessible.
That's right.
Because, you know, those are the actual fonts or whatever, you know, that those softwares will be able to read it.
That's right. So, for example, if you have a software, like for the accessibility point of view, if you have a software like JAWS or any type of screen readers, you can actually press a keyboard shortcut on the screen reader that's going to give you a list of all the headings. So instead of you reading all the document, you can navigate through the headings, which is much faster. Right?
Wow.
So yeah, it creates efficiencies for people with disability, but it's also creating efficiencies for people creating the document.
But that's my whole point.
So,
exactly.
So that, to me, it's everybody wins. So
wow.
let's use those features. Those are built-in features. It's the style feature. It's not the only accessibility feature. And it wasn't really designed as an accessibility feature to begin with. It was designed as a way to structure a document. Right? I mean, any books that you read, they follow a structure.
Of course, yeah.
That's basically what that is. It's to create a structured document, which obviously people that create assistive technology software will utilize or count on, expect to see in a document. And that's what makes a difference between an accessible document or a non-accessible document, really.
Amazing.
I mean, along contrast and other features as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say.
Yeah.
So having said that, though, I guess, you know, some of the features that you presented to us today, though, is and there's so many more. So
there's more. Yeah, unfortunately, we you know, it's a long topic. We could be talking about that for days. You know?
So I guess Charles Labassa just found a way to got the second invitation to do another webinar with us, and I know where he's coming from with this. But having said that, I guess, you know, the idea for today was to give you guys participants an overview about you know, different technology application and softwares, how originally it was designed mainly for person with disability, but how it ended up being integrated into those applications, and how overall, it can definitely make a big impact on productivity, and reduce margin of errors and so on, you know, within the workplace. That was the intent to do for us this afternoon, you know, to share with you a different perspective and go a little bit into it, though. And of course, the idea was not to deep dive, because, you know, it's almost impossible, as Charles was mentioning, to go into so many details whatsoever. But it was to provide an overview. I strongly encourage you guys, the participant, if you have any questions on what we covered so far during the day today, feel free to use the chat, as Charles would be available to answer any of questions that you may have. At the same time, I just wanted to, while, you know, if you have waiting to see if there's any questions or whatsoever, I just wanted to reiterate or mention again the point that all of the webinars that we're developing are being put on our website, so that you can be revisited, viewed, or share with your colleagues, your friends, or whatsoever. And the intent as well, though, is of NBESS is to reach out to as many employers as possible, you know. And the whole idea of this webinar today was to talk a little bit about assistive technology. And for a lot of people, especially, you know, individuals that are not quite familiar with assistive technology, a lot of them, from their perspective, it's like, oh, it's complicated, and it's really, really complicated. But as Charles was mentioning and showing this afternoon, it doesn't have to be necessarily complicated. And of course, you know, it's a matter of getting familiar with technology. But there is a lot available right now that can make everybody's life a lot easier, but not just person with disability, but as well the general population. And it can increase productivity, reduce the risk factor, and you know, increase efficiency within the workplace, Charles.
That's right.
Let's have a look, Charles. I don't know if you have access to the chat. Melody, could you double check if there's any question on the chat, and or highlight that, or maybe I should try just to.
Actually, I see it here, and there's no question yet.
There's no question yet. Okay. Well, you know what? If it's the case, though, Charles, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for your participation this afternoon. I'm gonna go to bed a little bit more smarter than when I woke up this morning, for sure. Still complicated for me, but nevertheless, though, I guess, as you mentioned, you know, it's a matter of getting to know the technology. It's already in there. It's already a part of the applications and the softwares that you already purchased for your organization usually. So it's just a matter of using them up to your advantage. So having said that, Charles, we appreciate very much your assistance with today. Webinar is being recorded. Feel free to reach out to NBESS if you have any questions whatsoever, and we can provide and share with you as well, once again, all the coordinates if you want to reach Charles himself or his organization to find out more about assistive technology. Please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than pleased. On that note, thank you very much for your participation this afternoon, and just follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and on our websites, as we will be posting in the near future dates for future webinars as well for employers and specialized agencies throughout the province, placement agencies. Once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you again. Merci, Steph. Thanks.
My pleasure.